Hello everyone, welcome to the Rift. Today, we'll be going over what I think are the top 10 blue cards from Origins. I'll be splitting this video into two parts. We'll be going over the top 5 blue units and the top 5 blue non-units, so spells and other stuff, just because it's a little bit weird to try and compare units to spells, and I didn't want the list to be just a bunch of units or just a bunch of spells. I'll be including a bunch of honorable mentions for each category as well. Alright, we have about 20-ish cards to talk about today, so let's just jump right into it. But first, if you're enjoying the content, then make sure that you like the video and feel free to smash that subscribe button. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, I have a link to my Patreon in the video description. Also, I have channel memberships now. They're just $1 and you get these nice badges next to your name whenever you comment or chat in live streams. Thank you to everybody who supports the channel, even just by watching videos. I really appreciate it. Alright, back to the video. Alright, starting off with the units, we'll go through some honorable mentions first. First up is Blue Ahri, the epic Ahri champion. She's decent, just 3 in a power for effectively 5 might worth of offense or defense. She's an alright card, she's got good stats for her cost at 3. The power cost is a little bit awkward to pay, especially in the early game. You really don't want to pay early power in this game if you can help it. And she's a little weak to spell damage as well, just because she's base 3 might, and also her ability does activate and does target, so it does trigger deflect costs. So if you're attacking something with deflect, you do have to pay extra power to do so, which is kind of awkward. Yeah, she's just a solid stat stick, but there's some awkward stuff that holds her back from really being great. Next up is Lecturing Yordle. This card is pretty good and sees some play in some decks. 2 might for 3 energy isn't great, but it also draws a card when you play it, so just replaces itself. Pretty low investment early game, just to take a point with it on an empty field and then have it die. You also get to draw the card right away, which is nice, and it doesn't cost any power, which is excellent. In a deck where you don't really care about your units living or dying, you just want to put them on fields to get points and then don't care about what happens to them after that. This card is excellent, just goes in, gets a point, and replaces itself with another card, so you aren't actually losing that much. Next is Blue Kaisa. This card could be good. It's currently not seeing any play. I think the format is just too fast for it to be effective at all. It costs 6, so you just play it down in base and you have to wait an entire turn for it to be able to do anything. It also requires some setup, so you have to have a spell in your discard pile that you actually want to use with this and be at the proper points value. So it's pretty slow and it takes some setup, but once it gets going, it's really good. So in a different format where the game is a bit slower and more drawn out, more card advantage focused, this card could be very good, but I don't think we're in that kind of format right now. It's just too fast for her to be able to do anything. Just paying 6 to play a guy in base and passing and not doing anything else is not really that good right now. Next is Blue Victor, another card that is not really great right now, but could definitely be very good in the future. There just really aren't that many spell slinging decks that want to hold up mana for the opponent's turn. You can kind of play it in Teemo sometimes, but I think there's other stuff to play in Teemo that's just better. The fact that he starts out at such a low might total and cost of power really holds him back from being useful. You really need to combo him with a bunch of spells as fast as you can, which most decks just don't really do very well right now. Yeah, potentially in the future, we bet if we get better stuff to pair with him, then he'll be a lot better. But right now, he's just okay-ish. Our last honorable mention is Dr. Mundo. This card is seeing some play in Kaisa specifically, and in Teemo sometimes as well. It's very good against Kaisa because it gets to a might total that is high enough to where they can't realistically kill him without having like a bunch more energy available than they usually would have. So most of the time when he gets played against like Kaisa, he's just gonna stick on the board and not be able to be removed, which is really good. The problem with him is that you have to play him when you're either even with your opponent or ahead, because you have to put him on a battlefield for him to be useful. If you just play him in base, that's really bad. Just taking your entire turn essentially to play a guy in base and passing and not doing anything else is not good most of the time. So you really have to get onto a battlefield and put him there, which requires you to either be ahead in points or even, or at least get to a battlefield. Because if you're trying to get into a holding pattern with your opponent where you're each just holding one battlefield for the rest of the game, you're not going to win if you're behind in points. And this guy does get smaller and smaller as the game goes on, so either you're going to have to refill your discard stockpile or close out the game fast enough so that they can't kill him. But yeah, he's a pretty good card against Kaisa specifically. Most of the time, they just aren't able to deal with him, and he can just close out games sometimes. Most Kaisa decks I see opt to play either 1 or 2 of him somewhere between the main and sideboard. Yeah, decent card, just a big guy. Alright, our top 5. At number 5, I've got Watchful Sentry, similar to Lecturing Yordle, except he's just 1 energy cheaper to do pretty much the exact same thing that Yordle does. Just go to a field, get a point, and then die, and replace himself with another card, so you're not actually losing that much. What makes this guy better is that he costs 2, so you can play him at any turn on the game, including turn 1, so you just play him going first, and then next turn put him on a field, and even if he gets run over, which he will, you don't really care. In decks that don't really care about their units that much, and even some decks that do, this guy is pretty good. Number 4 is Sprite Mother. This is also a really good card for taking battlefields and just not really caring about what happens to it, because it makes a token which will just die anyway because of its own effect. So you just lay it down, it takes a point immediately because the token comes in readied. It can even attack over something if you have something on a battlefield that's small enough. Yeah, overall a very good card. Just 2 bodies for 4 energy is pretty nice. You get 6 might total, which is pretty nice for 4, and it can essentially come in readied, which is really nice. Overall, just a very good card, especially useful against slow decks that want to go into the long game. It just helps you close out games faster. At number 3, we've got Ravenbloom Student. This card is one of the best 2-drops, in my opinion. It's very good. The amount of might this guy can get to is kind of crazy. Blue has some nice cheap spells in it that you can pair with this guy to get it to some pretty good might totals really quickly. Yeah, just 2 energy for a base 2 might guy that gets a lot bigger most of the time is really good. Most 2-drops in this game either just have like 1 keyword or some slightly boosted stats, so this is definitely one of the better 2-drops in the game. It's really good. At number 2, I've got Riptide Rex. This guy is a very good card, especially against decks like Master Yi, which are very popular in this format, and against a lot of other decks too. This card is just very nice. 6 energy for a 6 might body that also deals 6 immediately when it enters, is potentially a 12 might swing on board, which is very good for just 6. That's getting double the value you paid for it essentially, and even if they manage to save their unit, that's still getting a card out of their hand and putting a 6 might body on board anyway, so it's still pretty good, even if you don't get to kill something with the damage. Yeah, getting potentially 12 might worth of value on board just for 6 is very good. And our number 1 best blue unit, I think you can guess what it is. It is Thousand-Tailed Watcher. This card is insane. This is most blue decks' finisher of choice. It closes out games extremely effectively, and it can wipe boards very well, and it's very good at wiping boards, even if you don't close out the game with it. 8 energy and 2 power for 7 might accelerated that also semi-board wipes your opponent is very good. -4 to everything is amazing. It doesn't target, so it doesn't trigger any kind of deflect or anything like that. Yeah, when you're at 6 points, you just play this guy, and most of the time you're probably just gonna win. The amount of might swing that you get in your favor from playing this guy is insane. I've seen pretty big boards just crumble to dust because this guy gets played. Yeah, just having any other unit on board that isn't like a Watchful Sentry plus this guy in hand when you're at 6 points can just mean the game is over a lot of the time. I've definitely seen it happen a bunch. Yeah, I think this is definitely the best blue unit we have and one of the best units overall in the game. It's very strong. Alright, now to our non-units. This is just going to be spells because blue doesn't really have any good blue gear. There aren't that many good gear in the game just overall right now, but blue does have a bunch of really good spells. For our honorable mentions, first off, we've got Progress Day. This card sees some play in Kaisa sometimes. It's really only useful in the mirror match against other Kaisas and really only sometimes. It takes a lot of energy, so most of the time it's just going to be be either like half of your turn or your entire turn. And most of the time, you're probably just going to opt to either develop board or interact with your opponent's board or hold up energy to interact on your opponent's turn, because generally playing for tempo like that is better than just not developing any units or not trying to stop your opponent from doing anything. It's a very tempo negative play, and if you use the card wrong, you can easily just fall behind in the game in terms of scoring or board development. So when it's good, it's pretty good, but it is kind of just niche right now. The format is pretty fast and very tempo focused, so but if we ever get into a slower format when you can afford to play this card more, then it'll be a lot better. Next is Unchecked Power. This card is not really seeing that much play right now. It sees some play occasionally. This is really just on here for future use. It's kind of just the biggest board wipe that we have in the game right now that is remotely playable. It clears basically everything in the game except Dr. Mundo, so it occasionally sees some play right now sometimes, but in the future it could potentially be a lot better. The fact that it only hits battlefields and the fact that it exhausts all your units so you can't score with them the turn you play this card really holds it back, but I think the card would probably be too good if you took any of those parts away from it. Next up is Smoke Screen. This card is pretty good. It's really only being played right now in the format because orange is so heavily played in the format, and we really don't have that many better options right now for removal because the card pool is just so small. You could argue that it's top 5 material, but I think everything else on the list is probably a little bit better. It's very good against certain specific cards like Snapvine, but other than that, paying a power for a combat trick is not usually something you want to do, and it can't even kill units on its own, which most of the time doesn't really matter, but sometimes that does come up. You basically can't defend an empty battlefield with this card, which does make it a little awkward sometimes. And yeah, paying a power for a combat trick is not ideal. Alright, on to our top 5. Number 5, I've got Falling Comet. This card is interesting. It's a little expensive for what it does, but dealing 6 to anything is pretty good. It's not great against orange because they have Unyielding Spirit, but against everything else, it's pretty good, and the fact that it has action is really nice. It can defend an empty battlefield by itself. It can also just clear stuff to try and push into battlefields or just trade with something that's a bit annoying. It's just a very bare bones removal spell. Again, sometimes being played because we just don't really have anything better to play right now. All of the good removal spells that we have are already being played a bunch, and if you need more removal spells in your deck, you've got this card, you've got Smokescreen, and that's kind of it. It not costing any power is a pretty good upside, but it is just 5 energy for 6 damage, which isn't that good of a rate. 6 damage is a pretty nice threshold to hit a lot of the major threats. Most units in this format are going to be 6 or less might, except for the big stuff that decks are playing. Yeah, mainly just not costing any power makes this a decent enough card to consider. Alright, our next 4 cards are a lot better than everything else on this list, I would say. At number 4, we've got Retreat. This card is very good. Just 1 energy to save a unit is extremely strong, and it also refunds that energy essentially by ramping you by a rune, which is really nice. It can technically also be utilized as a ramp spell because of that. You can also just use it to reuse some on-play effects, like with Elixir Yordle. You lay it down, you cast Retreat on it, you can play it down again and draw another card from its effect. This card is seeing a decent amount of play right now, particularly in Kaisa for the mirror match to dodge all of their removal spells. I've seen most lists have either 2 or 3 of this card spread throughout their main and sideboard, and yeah, this card is just very strong. Saving all of your units is really nice, and getting the ramp on top of that is really good. For 1 energy, yeah, this card is definitely a steal. At number 3, I've got Consult the Past, Book of Greed. This card is very good. Drawing 2 for 0 energy and just a power is extremely strong. In Teemo, you're basically paying 1 energy to draw 2 if you want to, which is very good. Yeah, I think this is the best draw spell in the game right now. The rate that you get with this card is really good. 0 to draw 2 is amazing. Teemo plays this card probably at max copies all the time. Victor considers playing this card as well. Ari also does. does, and Kaisa sometimes plays it in more control-heavy, slower builds of the deck. Yeah, just a very good card. I think as time goes on, this card is just going to get better and better. At number 2, we've got Stupefy. This card is also very good and played basically at max copies in every blue deck. 1 energy for just a small combat trick that also draws a card, so you're not losing any card advantage, is very good. Even just playing this card to cycle and draw it deeper into your deck without trying to win any combats is a valid play. And when this card does actually win you a combat, it feels amazing. This card is sometimes really strong. Yeah, if your opponent is playing blue, they have 1 energy up. You basically always just have to play around this card, because if you get blown out by this card, it definitely does not feel good. At number 1, the strongest blue spell in the game, I think, is Singularity, especially if you're not playing orange and you don't have access to Unyielding. This card can sometimes just win games by itself. The fact that it can hit units in base is insane. Yeah, effectively clearing up to 12 might anywhere on the board is crazy, although you usually don't get the full 12 from this. It's just going to kill 2 mid-sized units, which is very good. It's an insane tempo play. You spend 6 to probably kill more than 6 energy worth of units on your opponent's side, and you can kill stuff in their base that hasn't scored yet, so they haven't gotten any value out of their units. Yeah, this card is just insane. I think it, along with some other spells that can snipe units in base, are definitely format-defining cards. They just make it so that playing stuff in base is never safe, unless you have answers to this card and other cards that allow you to play a bunch of units in base. You basically always have to think when your opponent could potentially have this card, how you're going to counter it, and if you can't counter it, you just kind of have to gamble. Do you play your 2 units in base that could potentially die to this, or do you just commit 1 and potentially play a slower game to try and play around this card and other cards like it? Yeah, it's definitely a very powerful card. Potentially format warping, although it's not really being played that much right now because orange is so dominant, and playing this card and getting blown out by an Unyielding Spirit most of the time just says game over for you. But yeah, if orange wasn't as good as it is right now, I think this card would be an absolute menace. And that's all the cards. Yeah, blue is definitely in a very good spot right now. It's definitely one of the stronger colors in the game. Honestly, all of the cards that I talked about today are absolute bangers. Definitely very strong cards. Alright, let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching. Take care.